Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, a month-long event celebrating the authors and narrators that bring romance stories to life. Listen along as Viviana, Enchantress of Books, interviews your favorite writers and voices, share special guest posts, and stay tuned for some special information at the conclusion of the episode.
Hi, everyone. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with guest narrator Tyler Donne. Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series. Tyler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, it's a thrill to talk to you and get to know you better. Speaking of, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating and how you got into narrating?
Yeah, sure. It's a funny question about. I grew up all over the place. I moved a lot as a kid. Like I lived in Maine. I lived in Arizona. I lived around New England. I had moved. I think I figured this out once. I'd moved 17 times by the time I was 17.
Ooh.
So I was very used to the kind of life on the road. Oh, we'll stay here for a year and then move on. But needless to say, I love travel, probably related to that. So I'm always up for an adventure. It's been hard the past couple of years, not traveling as much, but looking forward to getting back around. Let's see. I've been narrating since 2014. And yeah, it's kind of funny how I got involved with it. I had a friend who had been narrating for a while, and she had a good relationship with an author she had recorded a bunch of books for. And the author was looking to do a dual cast romance. And my friend was like, I know a male who has a great voice would be into narrating, and here's so I recorded a clip and an audition, and it kind of went from there, and it really has turned into a huge part of my work and life. It's really fun.
Yeah.
No.
Audible saying you got about 88 books according to Audible, which averages, give or
so
take.
It's been could be busier, but also really happy to be able to take my time with this and with other things too. So
I'm a firm believer and to tell everybody to take their time. I know that we love to devour the books and the authors are busting them out all the time. I'm like, I would rather wait for a great book than have you rush and give me one that's meh.
No, absolutely. It's tough sometimes to be like, slow down, right? There's so much that's just, we got to go and get this done. But scheduling your own time and finding, if you're fortunate enough to be able to really, say, no, I need to have time for this because I want to give it, I want to give it my full attention. And also, with so many romance novels are dual cast or duet style now. So you have a whole other element where you're working with another narrator and exchanging information and
calendar
vocal choices
Jenga.
And calendar Jenga and everything. And and then there's also home recording booth Jenga too. My wife also narrates, and so we have a home studio which I helped to build. And so we're always, we're jockeying for time in there too. So
rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, exactly. whoever puts it in calendar first.
I can imagine that run, adding it to the calendar.
Totally.
Yeah. And plus, of course, life. I mean, if there's construction, if there's a rainy day, heaven forbid that you guys get sick with your voices being gone. I mean, it's important to time stuff out. So
you have to build that in. You just kind of have to factor that in because it will come back to bite you if you're not careful.
Absolutely. Yep. As a girl that does calendar Jenga, I know that all too well. So with the process of having you do a book since 2014, how has your process of prepping a book changed between when you started versus what you're doing now?
That's a good question. Because some things have changed. I think I used to I've streamlined some of the way I make notes in a script. So I have different symbols. It's all done on iPads, right? So I have, my little pencil and I'm marking up things. I highlight different everybody has different colors, different characters, and I have like these shorthand squiggles, which really only mean things to me. I don't know that anyone else, but I know what they are, and they have a lot to do with kind of like flow and pace and accentuation and kind of rhythm of things, and or like stars for important things. That really I want to. Not that I'm gonna like hit it really hard when narrating, but it's like, oh, I see that coming up, that paragraph, I want to give that a little different tone, because it's good to be extra clear with that, either plot wise or like a character detail wise or something like that. So I think I've gotten just more streamlined with it, to specifically answer your question. So I kind of know, okay, this is happening here. I know this kind of scene that's going on, and I can kind of work on prepping a little bit faster, because I kind of know my way through a lot of things. But you always, you read the whole book first, of course. That hasn't changed. I still always do that. And because you do not want to be caught in the last page of the book and find out there was a different accent that you've just missed the whole time. So and those things do happen. That is not just an
urban legend. No,
urban legend. No,
nope. I know. I've talked enough to you guys to know that. And there's always two camps. I like the cold read so I can get into the emotion, and then there's a hell no, I'm reading the whole damn thing. And and I always say it's when you get to chapter 7 that you find out that he has a Russian accent.
Of course. And that's it's you always want to find these vocal descriptors that are in there, and some authors are terrific with them, and some really just don't feel the need to really include many. And it's you can describe a character other ways. You don't always have to say what they sound like. You can get a listener or a reader can get a sense of a character. It's not saying that's the only way to do it, but for a narrator, when you get those vocal descriptions, you're like, oh, that's gold, thank goodness. I've got she huffed, he said belligerently, things like that. And you go, oh, I know what that sounds like, where sometimes it's just he said, she said, or whatever. And you have to kind of look for other sources of character interpretation.
The other thing too is that depending on the kind of character, this one character pops in the scene because the best friends are hanging out, and then they pop in and pop out. Come to find out that same character is the lead hero in book 7, and you're going, crap.
You know exactly. Exactly. So especially if you have a heads up, if it's a series.
Yeah.
There was this happened years ago. I was working on a series. Lexi Ryan, she's a terrific writer. I've worked on narrated a bunch of her books, and great characters. And there was one that had like a slight Southern accent that like came up as just a minor character, and it later on it's like full book, and it's like, okay, all right, well, full book, first person, here we go. You're gonna see how this is gonna be, and like, oh, you back off of it a little bit. You don't go full blown, but you gotta sort of come up with a happy medium, So you have to watch out for that.
I always try to say it when I see the reviews or people are like, oh, he sounds different. I'm like, well, remember, we were listening to the best friend out of the ears of the main character, and now he's the lead, so he sounds completely different to himself than he does to other people.
Yes. You're so kind. That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, okay, good. But it's difficult.
It is. Yeah, you have to watch out for that. But I have for series, I have note keeping system where I look back at things from years ago, and I'm like, oh, right, that's what's going on. So when I'm making notes to myself, I'm also giving myself some shorthand about the character, because you might refer back to it a couple of years later if you're continuing a series, and need to remind yourself what the hell the dynamics are. So it's it's all about understanding the relationship dynamics and characters over time for series.
Amazing the amount of work that goes into these books. Sometimes people don't really know, which is why I love having these conversations with you guys. And I'm going, how the hell did they do this when they had cassette tapes?
It's mind-boggling, right?
It really
is.
And you used to get a manuscript, like paper.
Yep.
And
yeah, and you just silently turn the page and let them drop to the floor,
Yeah, but imagine those notes. I'm like, oh, having to keep that manuscript. Oh, yeah. So thank you for technology and iPads.
Exactly. Yeah, makes it a lot easier.
So your voice is your tool, is your skill set and everything. How do you have any rituals or routines or anything that you do before you get into the booth to record to keep that strengthening going and healthy?
Absolutely. I think it's a lot like, other forms of acting on stage or for film. You've got to be ready with your instrument, right? So, for me, usually about 10-15 minute warm up. I find I like to do a kind of start a session around 10:30 or 11, get up at like 8:39, have time to, really have a good warm up. Sometime, and you're sort of seeing where you're at each day too. So there's a lot of like, you got to be really conscientious with like where you're at, especially when you're like matching the way you're sounding day after day. And so yeah, tongue twisters, breathing, steaming in the shower sometimes that really helps if you have to, if you're like extra kind of like wake up, it's like, oh, it's pollen allergy season or whatever, you have to kind of work through that too and get yourself back to where it's gonna match. And even with that, there will be times where I'll I'll listen to, I'll be sending files and I'll be checking them and I'll be like, oh yeah, that was a day, that was like I had to take 3 days off, this sounds a little different here. But not that necessarily a listener would notice that, but like it's a subtle thing you got to be aware of.
Yeah. And of course, we are our own critics or worst critics. So we pick up every damn thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to listen to yourself.
See, and you guys have this whole thing where, oh my God, you sound so hot. Oh my God, you guys sound so sexy. Oh my God, her voice is so good. And I'm going, I don't want to listen to my voice because I don't have anybody saying that in my reviews. So I'm okay.
Right. Okay. Well, it's, reviews are a very slippery slope. You have to, you get a great one and then, and it's really, it speaks to the thing I always remind myself of is if you're going to go down the rabbit hole of reading reviews, you've just got to remember that the human voice is so subjective. And what one person finds totally appealing and charming or sexy is what another person might find just like boring and uninteresting, just kind of droll. It's so subjective.
No, it is definitely.
And so I try not to think about how other people think of my voice and try to focus on just telling the story in the way I think is best going to serve the story. And that's the best I think you can do. But yeah.
But yeah, you'll get those reviews too, or in the groups where like, damn, when he said that word, or oh, he was so emotional and his voice cracked and things. I'm like, oh, and I'm going, yeah, that's a good narrator.
Yeah, well, at best you are really connected to it, and things, if a voice crack or you get a little teary at something, it's like, yeah, keep that in. That's real. It happens sometimes, but just like other acting too, it's some days you're going to be feeling it more than other days. And also, different writing is going to just be, I'll connect to different writing differently too. Some days it's like, okay, I'm getting in the booth and it's a job. And then other days I'm like, I'm getting in the booth and this writing is fantastic. I love these characters. I'm just, it's easy to be inspired. So, that's just part of the gig too, is to find ways, even when you might not be like, oh, I'm not really into this book, but to find ways of like, well, I want to serve the author. I really want to tell their story. They took the time to write this. Even if it doesn't speak to me, I want to do the best with their characters and their story and, try to make it fun for me and the listener.
And of course, it goes into even each scene sometimes, because you'll get some of these, dark romances that are like way crazy with drama and the trauma. and others you'll get the lighthearted rom-coms, and you're laughing and giggling, and then all the in-betweens. And then I'm like, as long as the dog does not die, we're good.
Right. I know. Thankfully, I haven't encountered that before.
Good.
Yeah. No. But you bring up a good point about all the subgenres within romance. There's so many, and it really does. I change a lot between books when I get to the end of it, and I think, okay, this is gonna fit kind of in this storytelling place in my voice, or in this type of energy. And like, some just really demand to move along at a pace, and some just you got to slow down with, there's a huge variety out there, and that's part of the fun. I mean, is you get to play in all these different varieties. There's a series, the Hades saga, Scarlet St. Clair, and I just finished recording the second book in that, and it's all full of all these Greek gods. It's like fantastic, but it is high drama, high stakes. It's like these gods, and it's a romance with Hades and Persephone and their continuing story. It's terrific. But that would be an example of like really extreme, high stakes, high drama, high power. Very different from, your kind of girl meets boy next door kind of thing.
Well, 1 minute you're a mobster, the next minute you're a shifter, the next minute you're a god, the next minute you're a filthy billionaire, and Empire State Building, whatever. So
exactly. But that's so much fun. I mean, how lucky am I to play all those parts?
Yeah. But even then, I mean, again, with this, the scenes and stuff, not only the emotions, but even some of the, like when there's banter between the characters, and even the sexy times, because it seems like the authors have picked up this trick where they're about to get more intimate, and it was the girl's point of view, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're getting it from the guy's point of view. And then you guys are the ones doing all the the dirty talking and everything, and I'm more like, okay.
Yeah, it's it has that's a good point. I mean, having done this for seen some shifts in styles, you raise a good point for dual casts. I mean, when I was first starting, dual casts were like just really starting to get super popular. And that's become, I mean, it's so common now for romances, and I think it is, and duets too. I think I've only done like one of those, and it's super fun. I think for the listener, it's terrific, because it starts to become more of a like an old radio drama, right? You're listening to something that is not just a strict book. You're starting to branch into another part of this, the genre of audio storytelling, and those are really fun. The more acting you get to bring to scenes, the happier I am.
Getting it all,
Totally.
Yeah. No, it used to be, I remember that it was always just one narrator. And then when duels started getting popular, people were a little bit like, I don't know if I like this.
Yeah.
And then it becomes really popular now. And now it's duets is becoming the thing too. And again, the same thing. I don't know if I like this. I'm like, shut it. It's good.
Yeah. And then there's also book I'm working on right now is third person, but I forget the phrase for this. Maybe you can help me. When it's third person, but it is still it's changing perspective. Like it is back and forth between the guy and the girl, the lady and the man. But it's still third person, but you're kind of seeing it from their perspective. I forget. There's a I should know the name for that.
It's okay.
We can find it later.
Yeah, but at the same time, they probably made something else up, like when they did the new genre of new adults. And I'm like, wait, what? Yep. We have a new adults, and now we're going to have what about the rest of us? Vintage and antique?
Yeah. Right.
Like,
where would I don't make me age myself, please. I'll age myself out.
Yeah, I know. But that's the whole thing, that there's always something new. And even authors now are realizing that, hey, I'm going to have this be an audiobook. So I'm going to remove some of those tags. The
Yeah.
she said,
Yeah.
he said, and things
Right.
like that. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
how far we've come. And we're
I
gonna
know,
get
but it's also a sign of what listeners are accustomed to, right? Like they're learning, they're happily consuming like so much audio content, but they're also, I think, I mean, I listen to tons of audiobooks, so I can say this personally too, that, I am like more orally experienced. So I'm accustomed to a maybe a faster paced kind of oral landscape, or where I can handle different multicasts. I'm okay with listening to a heavily produced podcast, right? Because I'm so experienced at listening to stories and navigating through them and keeping track of the things and characters in my head and all that.
No, I personally, my preference is duet or full cast if possible, depending on what the story looks like.
So much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
And you guys also get to play off each other if you can.
Yes. Yeah. Well, one duet I did a while back, Hot Mess in the Heartthrob by Pippa Grant, which people really liked. Happy to see that. And we recorded that in the booth at the same time together, which was awesome because we were, it really got to feel like a radio play back and forth. So that was terrific.
Yeah. And of those scenes when that happens, for me, my favorite is when there is that banter. Because especially when they're interrupting each other, it's hard to do when you're talking with yourself.
Nope, exactly. And that's that extra layer of an audio oral experience that these different subgenres can bring to it for listeners. Yeah,
absolutely. I know we touched a little bit on the characters and how you kind of get some of the descriptives and how you can make them sound, but when that doesn't happen in the story or throughout the book, how do you go about selecting what a character is going to sound like and their tones?
Yeah, really good question. I'm just getting a sip of water 1 second. So I think I sort of started to describe this a little bit, right? There's lots of ways in a book that an author might give you some inclinations as to what this character is like. It might be a description of how they walk into the room, or how they're treating someone else, or it might even be a description of how they look, which of course is like, you don't necessarily, it might be enough of a spark to give you some idea to be creative with how they might sound. And sometimes you really get nothing. And then you just have to, then I say to myself, well, what world am I in? Right? Like what kind of people do I think, or do I know that would fit into this? And I make a choice, and and I'll either put like a shorthand note about them, or I'll record a voice, like a memo right in the PDF I'm working off of, to have a description of that character, a sample of them. But yeah, so you have to look all over, anywhere. I mean, I'll age, sometimes you get a description of their age, and I'm sure listeners who listen a lot or have favorite narrators. I know I have some favorite narrators, and you'll notice that they aren't necessarily doing an entirely different accent for every, or a character voice for every different character in every book they've ever narrated, right? Like that's a tall order, but it's, you do have narrators have a wide variety of characters, and they, like I kind of have a broy, relaxed best friend guy, right? He's just there for you, and he's like, I'll help you out, no problem. I'm there for you, man, like that. And he kind of comes up, right, multiple times. And there might be subtle changes to him, right? Maybe he's a little bit more ornery, but he's still that sort of supporting best friend. Because so sometimes I just, make that choice when I don't have anything else to go off of. I'll be like, well, I know this guy. I feel like that's the right tone for him. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you
Well, I
do the
mean,
best.
yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too, when it comes down to that range of making things sound different. I know that even when it comes down to like, if the characters tends to be a bit more like excited when, and things like that. So when they get excited and they're happy, they talk a lot faster.
Of course. Yeah. No, pacing is totally a useful tool, right? And I'll write in the side of my mark, like fast, slow, the exclamation point, something that will, because changing the pace is really great for the listener too. That it helps the story along.
Yeah, definitely. And something else that the listeners love are accents.
Oh, well, everybody loves accents. I mean, I've loved accents since I was a little kid. It's just accents are always fun. I mean, they're, we're human. We love humanity, right? We love the varied ways we all sound. They're just, it's
and just certain words that just sound so much better in a particular accent.
Of course.
I mean, like the word darling. I love the word darling, but when it's done in a Southern accent, it just comes a little bit different.
Yeah.
Or love and stuff like that with the British.
Yep. And really good writers, they will write the pace, the phrasing or pacing of an accent into their characters, which is great when that happens, because they might use some different kind, like you're saying, different words that really go orally really well with that accent, so it isn't like just the accent, they'll write it in too, and that always helps, then you're like, oh, it's a little bit easier. But
so what's your favorite to perform?
I would probably say that the French accent is one that I love to do. I do not get to do it too often in audiobooks, but it is a good one. And then when there's a bad guy, there's often like an Eastern European bad guy, that comes up, so that's always that's fun, but yeah, those are probably my two, French and Eastern European.
Okay. What about the opposite side where it's like the hardest for you to perform?
I mean, Australian is hard. I think I've gotten a little better at my Australian accent. Is gotten a little bit better from lots of practice and friends telling me that I'm not doing it right at all. And, so that's one, ones I'm working on all the time, of course. And then sometimes you just have to do your best. You're like, I have to do something. Less is more. Just do a little bit here and hope no one hates it. So the UK is so varied, right? So sometimes there's so many accents in the UK, and so there's I have a handful I can do, but once in a while there'll be like a specific one that'll come up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, a Yorkshire accent, really? I'm just like, try to channel Sean Bean and like do my best, but it's and that's what you do. You go to the internet and watch clips of people and listen to, just do the best you can. But yeah, there are some UK accents that are really tough because they're so specific.
It just takes that one listener sometimes to just pick it up and say,
but then I'm from, I'm exactly from there. That's not what they sound like. No.
But then I always say, well, there was that one review where they were talking about a narrator and how his Irish accent was not existent at all, and it totally sucked. And I'm like, he's Irish in real life.
Yeah.
Or even the British happened one too with the British narrator. Oh, his British accent's so fake. It's so obvious. And I'm like, he's from London.
Well, they're so exact. Well, that's the thing, right? The accents, especially UK, are so varied, and listeners might get used to. I know there's certainly some I am far more used to and accustomed to, as thinking, oh yeah, that's a British accent, but then you hear one, especially if you start to get, up into the Scottish brogues and things like that, there's like really drastically different. And someone might go, that's not what this is confusing. So, you really, that I think it's really good to ask myself when I'm confronted with an accent, how far does this need to go to tell the story and not be distracting? And if it is one that I just cannot get, can't get my head around, can't get my tongue around, just can't do it, just a hint of it, find a couple words here and there that will give the flavor of it and move on, and then just tell the story, because otherwise it will be distracting. And that's the last thing you want to do. You want it to be fun and informative and help the story. You don't want it to pull away from it.
Yeah, you don't want to do a caricature of the Lucky Charms.
Right. No. Oh, no.
Happily delicious.
Hoity-toity.
Yeah.
All those terrible stereotypes, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and you have to really watch out. That's one of the narrator's many jobs, is to, look at what they're doing, look what's informed in the text, what is it asking for, and be as truthful as you can, as a performer, so that's what we do.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
When it comes down to the different characters, I know that we're talking about the different genres and things like that, but there's always that the moody or the billionaire or the mobster and things like that. What's your favorite type of character to play and voice?
Characters that go through something, begin in one way, have some kind of journey, right? That you get to, that is fun and interesting, or sad and interesting, or just engaging because of the story, but also because of what they're going through. And so then that gives me, as a performer, narrating, to carry that through vocally as well, and then it's feeling a little bit more like a play, because that's right, that's what a play is going to show, a big change, hopefully. Most of the best drama out there does. It's like, why is this day different from everything? What's shifting? What's happening? So when a character goes through a big journey or a big shift, that's always my favorite kind, because because change is one of the constant big things we struggle with and have to accept in life, right?
Yeah,
So
no, that's for sure.
when it's told well, and when it's handled, and when you see someone go through it, you're like, oh, I connect to that. That's great. They won over their demons or whatever it is.
Yeah, when the author can do something and writing at the beginning of the book, and you're going, how the hell is she going to redeem this asshole?
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. You'd love to see, someone come through something, someone change, see the better. But it's also, sometimes you have that character who begins all nice, and they end up being the bad guy in the end, or the person who you didn't see coming, who yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. That's always fun.
Yeah.
I just got finished prepping a book, actually. I was just working before we got on here, and it was like finally revealed, oh, that's who did it at the end.
Oh, that who done it. Oh.
And then but like that, there's an important thing to note, right? So now I know who this is. I can't give it away.
Hints, yeah.
Can't hint at it. And you got to be careful with that, right? So I'm like, oh, well, this guy is he sort of seems like a little bit of a sleazeball in the beginning, but I don't want to color him too much that way, because then it's like the sleazy kind of brother-in-law guy. We'd totally be suspicious of him. So it's almost like you got to play against that a little bit vocally, right? So that's another job of the narrators, not to give it away too soon.
Yeah. Like when you're watching a movie and you're like, I know who did it, and it's only like the first couple of minutes, and people are like, how? And I'm like, I figured it out.
It's called telegraphing, right?
Yeah.
Telegraphing. Like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, don't. No. Is there a genre within romance that is your favorite to narrate?
Huh. You know, I that's a good question. You know, I do like ones that kind of cross over into other have a touch of fantasy in them. So I have really enjoyed the KF Breen's. There's like fantasy, and the Hades saga I mentioned before is like Greek gods. It's like those bigger dramatic worlds are really fun. But I don't know. That's a good question. I think yeah, I'll say that. I think so. I mean, I like a lot of different styles. I guess the best way to answer that would be I like a romance that is not too cookie cutter. There's a place for them. There absolutely is. And I enjoy them, and you find a way to enjoy them. There's something very satisfying about this sort of the dependability, not de- yeah, dependability of like the story. You know it's going to have this like satisfying conclusion. They're going to have that breakup in the middle. They're going to get back together, and like that can be it's actually it can be quite lovely to tell that story. But that story is told a lot. And so when someone finds a way to kind of break that genre a little bit, to kind of flip the story a little bit out of that kind of set style, I enjoy that. And if that means setting it in a totally different, fantastical world, that can help with that for me. And this is a little selfish to say, right? Like this is just my favorite. I'm happy to narrate all
Well,
kinds of
that
books
was
and
your
find that,
yeah.
um, so I hope that answers.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know there's one author that I love that her name is Danica Dark. And when she
Mm-hmm.
started writing her second series, which is the 7 series, I was fortunate enough to be one of her alpha readers. Funny enough, it's about a shifter and alphas. So, and I was like, dude, this reads like a contemporary, but it happens to be a paranormal.
Yeah.
And she also mixes that fantasy and the PNR. So I do like that stuff too when they kind of cross into that little hop here
Definitely.
line, hop the other line, hop this line.
Yeah.
Now where am I gonna go next?
Yeah. But I will one caveat to that is that if there is really rich character development, it does not matter what subgenre. If the characters are really three-dimensional, I am on board. I'm like all for it. If they're complicated, they have like multiple layers and they're going through, like we said, going through that transition or that struggle, that change, then I am on board for that. But that, that can happen, and that's not genre specific. So yeah.
No, it works. We get it. We understand.
Good.
I know you've kind of touched on it a little bit. I'm gonna see about the whole concept of like when it comes down to like your favorite part of narrating, specifically romance. You've touched it here and there, but is there anything else that you might want to add to that?
Well, it's universal. I love that it is a kind of topic that we all, just as humans finding our way through this world, relating to each other and trying to be happy and find love, like that we can all relate to that. And so being part of those stories for people, I that's great. It's it's a and it is a it's escapist for folks too, and just like to have something that feels ultimately is going to be a light heart, is going to have that happy ending. There is also like I'm happy to be have a career or work that is part of that too, because I know it ultimately, hopefully, people like it is making people happy, and is like is part of just focusing on love and connection. And that's so I'm happy to be part of that, even in a tiny way.
Yeah, I mean, there's always lovely Twitter debate as to whether romance has to have an HEA or not, and we're always like, no, as long as there's that HEA at the end, we're good.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's debatable. Yeah,
some people, but
Yeah.
there's others. I mean, you should see the conversations. It gets like you want to start eating popcorn, like how heated sometimes these get.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna. Now the 10-foot pole.
All right, we won't put you on the record here.
Yeah.
saying where you come down on that one.
I personally, I'm a little bit old fashioned when it comes down to knowing that, but also now the authors are playing with different styles of writing where used to be one book, one character, as far as a couple goes, and they get their HEA, but now sometimes they're doing it over 3 books, their story. And so they can't have a happily ever after in book 1 if it's going to take 3 books to tell the story. So cliffhangers and all that other fun stuff,
Definitely.
Authors sometimes do that on purpose, I think, when they're like, ha ha ha,
and they break up again.
Yeah. Or even when they're like, oh yeah, it's coming to audiobook, and we're like, yes, who are the narrators? No, can't tell you yet. Oh.
Yeah.
Or like, you suck. Is there a genre that you have yet to narrate that you'd like to?
Oh, I haven't done any like really historical fiction, like and even I guess like even in romances, I haven't done any sort of older, like set in like old timey kind of like I love I love history and at different stages in American history. I think I love nonfiction as well, and so I love things that are set in older times, and that's it's a tall order for authors because there's a ton more work to do with that to be accurate. So they don't come along as often, but next one that does, I'll try to nail it down.
Yeah, well, you heard it here. He wants to do something historical, ladies and authors. He's got to do that. I think a lot of times we think of historical romance, we think like dukes and viscounts and British and things like that. But also, I'm like, you do forget that we have other things here.
We have
also,
other history. Yes,
yeah,
we have
in
other,
the US. Or they'll do a Highlander.
Right, there you go. There can be only one.
Oh God. That's a good Sean Connery.
Oh, well, I'm not gonna bite at that one.
No.
Oh, Sean Connery, rest in peace.
Yes. But again, it goes back to that whole what we as listeners like. We have authors do ask us, hey, who are some of your favorite narrators, or who are the narrators that you think have not blown up yet and they deserve to, like, poof. And I'm like, and that was one of the questions too, that your name was like Tyler. I'm like, damn, Tyler. Are you tired from running through everybody's minds?
Oh, well, that's great to hear.
Yeah. So again, authors, if you have a historical, Tyler Donne,
there we go,
is your man. I think you said that you don't have a problem with listening to your own recordings as far as your voice.
Oh, it is difficult to.
Okay.
It is,
all right.
It is difficult to.
How do you get there?
No. I've gotten used to it. It's because I've had to do it so much for when I'm involved with more of the production of titles, which comes up sometimes especially with indie work. But so I just get used to it. Though sometimes I can get away with listening to it at like 2 times speed if I'm editing something. Sometimes, but not always. It depends on what the task at hand is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. I don't know why it's hard. I just
at least you're like the rest of us. I was gonna be like, what
superpower?
power
No, we just sound different to ourselves. I'm like, I have my headphones on here. I'm in my booth and I hear how we are talking in our interview right now. And I'm going to be like, I'll hear this whenever, in June or something. And I'll be like, oh, that's what I sounded like. Oh no. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, it's also fun too for the listeners, because there tends to be this is your normal talking voice. And then it's almost like a position change within the voice when you start to narrate, even though it's still your voice, but there's just something a little different.
Well, you raise a, we were kind of talking about this earlier, for an overall book, like if it's first person and that first person is 22, is young, I am going to pitch that just a little bit higher. I might be up here talking, which is my natural range. It's not like I'm putting on something, and it's just sort of, where do I want to sit for a whole book? And the characters of course will be different, but it's like, does this want to be, or like we were talking about different genres too, a sort of brighter, more of a pastel cover to the book, some lots of light blues in that font on the cover of this one, might be, it's probably not going to be down here. It's not going to, where my voice also naturally, but you can't force it, but I've got to make a choice. What's going to be the best place for this, this story.
Because also you're a little bit more relaxed. Like we're just, shooting the shit a little bit here. If you slur something real quick, or me with my little lisp sometimes, depending on the word, it's okay. But if I was recording, no.
Yeah, no, can't really get away with that too much. You might come back as a pickup.
Yeah. Can you just redo the whole book? Sorry.
Tyler, were you drinking during recording? No, I was not. Fine. I'm fine. It's just the way I talk.
Yeah, so it's always fun. That's why I like having these conversations with you guys, because we get a bit of a sense of, that's what he sounds like outside the booth, kind of a thing, which is always fun.
Of course.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you actually like to read and stuff like that. What do you read for pleasure?
Well, I make sure I have an actual real paper book by my bedside at night, because I read on an iPad all day for work. And so having a paperback, a hardcover, whatever, and all kinds of things. Right now I'm reading H's for Hawk, Helen MacDonald. It's incredible. It's so good. It was like one of the great book, 2014, I think it says on the cover. So that's a fiction, incredible. And then nonfiction, sometimes I read a couple months ago, Boys in the Boat, Daniel James Brown, really, really great, about this rowing crew team, 1936, gold in Germany. It was like an amazing story. So all kinds of things, but I want to have it to be actual paper to give my eyes a rest from a screen.
Yeah, that lovely blue light. Yeah.
Put it on, sometimes I switch over to that softer, warmer light, but it still is very tiring.
It is, yeah. I know that one of the things I loved when the devices first came on board was being able to read in bed and not have to have lights on. You know, because then if you're with someone, you're not bugging them.
Totally. Yeah.
Or getting in trouble for staying past your bedtime. But paperbacks are still a good thing to have. I will still buy them.
Yes, real books. Support your local bookstore.
No, absolutely. Yeah, something about holding it, but totally when it comes down to the eyes. I mean, working computers every day. I hear you.
Yeah.
Do you listen to audiobooks for fun too?
I do. Yeah. I didn't have a TV growing up, so I listened. I had a lot of books on tape when they were on tape, and that just kind of it's so funny. It sort of like came back to doing this now as a career, and so I've never lost my enjoyment of listening to books on tape. And what am I listening to now? Lord of the Rings. Andy Serkis's new recording of that is unbelievable. Talk about voices. Yeah, really, really great. I go for walks. That's my preferred time to listen, or just like at night winding down. Those are my two listening time. I cannot listen while driving in the car. I don't like, so many people do that. It's great. They love to listen to audiobooks in the car. I'm like, I need to focus more. Either on maybe I just tells you something about my driving style. I'm like, I need to focus on driving. I listen to music in the car, listen to audiobooks walking or winding down at night. Those are the best times for me.
I find it interesting that you listen to music while you're driving, but not an audiobook.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It just
comprehension, I think, is different.
Yeah, that's it. I really want to make sure. Maybe it's because I have that kind of like actor's hat on too. I'm listening with like two ears. I'm listening to the story, and I'm also like, wow, I loved what he did with pacing right there, or like she did that awesome accent right there. I want to remember that. So I kind of have that going on sometimes too. So I like to, maybe it's sort of like an OCD thing. I'm like, did I miss that? I need to go back and make sure I heard that. You know?
Yeah.
In the car, it's like,
yeah. No, I feel you. I feel you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, working in cubicle world for the day job,
mm-hmm.
you know, there have been moments where you just stare at the screen and nothing has been typed in a while because you're like in that emotional scene or some other kind of scene, and you're like, no, I think we gotta put this down because this is due by 5.
Right.
Cubicle world. I don't miss it.
No, I did some temping time years ago and know of what you speak.
With actors and acting, sometimes there's always that option where you are given an opportunity to audition or asked to do a role. And sometimes you're like, no, I can't. I don't have the time, or I don't really think it's a good fit. You know, fill in the blank for the reason behind it. But is there a book that just got away that you're going, damn it, I should have done it?
Oh, I know that there are, because that is like, you know, that is the exercise of actors, right? Is to like be so committed. I want this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do all my preparation. I'm going to put this audition out there. And then you have to like just let it go and like not think about it. But I can't think of anyone like specifically right now, but it totally happens. Yeah, I'm like, damn, I really wanted that, because sometimes you get that script and you're like, this is really good writing, or you're like, I know this author, I'd love to do this book. And you just do your best and let it go. That's like, you know, the practice. That's actually like, I think I talk about when I'm talking about the sort of experience, the experience of narrating, and there's a certain kind of constant, you know, you want to tell the story, but you cannot get too in your head about it. You have to just trust, you know, that you're serving the text and you're telling the author's story. You can't, you know, especially if you're doing home recording and you're in control, there's that temptation of going back and keep doing it again and get that line again and get that line again. And it's like, you got to just let go. So there's sort of this kind of almost, we can get into like sort of a spiritual conversation about that, right? It's like, you gotta, you hold on tightly and let go lightly, right? You just kind of keep going and trust at the end of the day, you're doing, you know, doing the best you can and you're telling the story. But if you get too nitpicky, you kind of start to work against yourself too. So yeah, you let the ones get away that got away too. You can't dwell on it. It'll drive you crazy.
Yeah. And you know, that's always a question that we're always like, I wonder, you know, when it comes down to the actors and the audiobook world and things like that, about writing that story or performing in that one play or things like that. But life happens, or you're like, nah, it's not for me. And then you see it portrayed and you're going, damn it.
Yeah. Okay. I was up for that.
I know. Yeah. But it's good to learn to let it go, because, you know, as the song says, let it go. Sometimes we don't want to. As soon as you said let it go, I'm like,
far into this interview without a Frozen reference. Oh,
I know, right? But it's hard to because we are our own worst critics and we're hardest on ourselves. And to see sometimes that you could have done it if you did this, if you would have just shifted the calendar, you know, calendar Jenga, and things like that. Or Yeah. So it's good to learn to let it go. It's still a skill
Yeah.
set that I'm learning on certain things.
It
So,
just, and
yeah.
every time, but every time you let go of something, you're making room for something else.
Yeah.
That's the,
That's a great way to see it.
Yeah. Try to look at it that way. That's what I try to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a lull in my schedule a couple months ago, and I just filled it. I like filled it with great other things. I did like house projects and like all this other, and it was great. And it's like, and I just tried to not get like too worried or too down on myself or whatever. I'm like, just, and didn't made the best of the time that suddenly was there, and like try to look at it as a good thing.
Yeah. It's hard for freelancers though, and which is what you guys are. Same thing with authors, and same thing with like with the work that I do with the authors and the narrators. It's when you have like an opening in your calendar, you're like, because not only obviously pay,
right, of course,
but you're going, do they not love me anymore?
I know that voice, that critic, it comes up. It's the constant thing that actors and narrators, and I think there's narrators bear an extra special burden of that voice because you're alone in your booth. Not on every project, but almost every project. You're alone in your booth. Sometimes, hopefully you've got an engineer with you, which can be great, but you don't always. And you've just got to keep that, that voice that's getting too critical just at bay sometimes. But that's part of the practice. But it's tough.
Yeah. But you filled that, that emptiness in the calendar with home projects, and I do graphics.
And I've got side gigs. I've other things I do, and other things you try to just. I mean, that's the freelance life. It isn't any one thing all the time. You're used to that.
Yeah, I tend to try to figure out, okay, what skill set can I improve on? So I'm like, what classes are out there, and what's the newest certification or learning, or what's new on Facebook, again, on Instagram.
Yeah, there's stages to it. There's There's the, okay, well, I'm freaking out. Why isn't anyone calling? Okay, I'm going to do things. I fill your time and you fill it up. And then it starts to go on a little longer. Then you're like, okay, I need to change something. And that's all good. It's like, maybe I'm going to work on some things. I want to maybe reconnect with authors, or work on some, go hunting for audition, be more proactive with things, do all those things too, which you're, got to do a lot of the time also. So
yeah, I love working for myself. I love being a freelancer, but there's moments.
No, I am thankful every day for doing this kind of work. I love it.
Cool. So we're going to have a couple of questions now, getting to know a little bit deeper down of getting to know Tyler a little bit better. So if you're ready.
Okay, go for it.
When you're not working, that moment in time when you're not working.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun?
Well, I mentioned going out for walks. I'm a big lover of nature, and thankfully we're up in hilly, mountainous area a lot of the time, and so I have great access to walking and hiking around. So that's I love that. So I try to do that, every day, get out, and it's a really important balance just for my life too. You're in a dark booth looking at a screen, be out in nature looking into like the distant hills. It's really
not talking to yourself.
Yes, that change, because that's to me that is when I'm like, I've got a more of a well-rounded kind of life going. I'm like, okay, what are those house projects I want to do? What am I going to build or clean or get in the garden? Right now we've got spring finally coming, and so I've working on orders for some new plants and mulch and stuff like that, things that are more kind of dirt under your nails. So that's one thing. I love cooking. I do the majority of the cooking in the house, so like that's I've loved cooking since I was really really young. And I have a regular poker game. Yeah, I've had it for almost 20 years. This is crazy. We've had a poker game for almost 20 years. Not every Friday night, but most Friday nights, and a lot of the same guys. And it's really awesome because like now a lot of them having kids, and like life is happening. It's like going on. It's awesome. And it was in person sometimes, but during the pandemic we had a regular thing online too. With like Discord open also. It's really great. It's fun.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list to learn how to play poker.
Oh, you got to. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So what is your favorite dish to cook?
Ooh, gotten really into making tagines lately. Do you know what that is?
No.
So a tagine, right? It's a there's French Moroccan tagine. There's different kinds of tagines, but it's basically there's a special kind of pot that I got one for Christmas. It's a tagine pot, and it's like clay. It's sort of domed, conical shaped, and like it steams stuff, so you can do all kinds of things. You start with like potatoes, sweet potatoes, onions, harissa, which is like this chili kind of seasoning, and tomatoes, and some like dried fruits, apricots, and it just like stews and stews and stews, and it's like kind of slow cooks. And it's there's something about the way that this sort of dish cooks it. I like different accoutrements in the kitchen too. So I'm like, oh, this new pot, it's awesome. I can cook something different with it. So that's been really fun. That's kind of that's a new one. Yeah.
Nice. Is there a dish that you're like known for, that when there's a party or a gathering or something, that you have to bring?
Yeah, I make a damn good risotto.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Mushroom risotto.
My favorite.
Yeah, I'm vegetarian, pescatarian, so I like always looking for good things like that.
Good. Yeah, food's definitely a love language for many people, and gatherings and stuff like that.
Definitely. Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah. What's your favorite holiday and why?
I'm gonna go pretty classic on this one. I mean, Christmas in New England, snow, fireplace, calm, friends, family, like that's just the best. It's just the best. Yeah, I mean, I love all the seasons. I'm like 4-season kind of guy, and seeing the changing seasons around the Northeast is, and when you have a snowy Christmas and it's just perfect by the fire, it's the best.
Yeah, I wouldn't know because I'm a Florida girl.
Oh, okay. A little different kind of Christmas there. You've got your Christmas tree in the garage, right?
Yes, I do.
If you celebrate Christmas. I don't know what you celebrate, but I mean,
I do. Yeah. So
okay.
Christmas is my favorite too. So yeah, it's in the attic, and while I do have a fireplace in the house, it's still not the same. I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel north when it's been winter, and kind of seem like this is what they mean about the changing of the leaves and stuff like that. But
it's pretty special.
It is. Yeah, it's fun. Christmas is a good holiday.
I haven't been to Florida in years. I want to go back.
Yeah, well, especially if you have like the outdoors. We have so many natural parks and springs that even natives are like, it is. Thank you, TikTok. I'll go, I didn't know about that one. I was born and raised here. Lovely. So that's also two things like to explore. That's not Disney.
The Keys are on a bucket list for us, definitely.
Oh, the Keys are fun.
Yeah.
Just don't go through hurricane season.
Okay. No. Noted.
Yeah. Well, because you just never know. You can make plans. Totally. You have all this stuff. You're going, yay.
Yeah. And then, nope, boom, everything's canceled.
Yeah. Or worse, you're there.
Oh, man.
There's an evacuation, but no.
Oh, geez. Sounds like you've got some stories about that.
Oh, yeah. Again, stuff to talk about later on. In the next episode, we'll talk about hurricanes and your trip to, the Keys and all that fun stuff.
Every area, right? They've got their, Northeast blizzards.
Yes.
No joke. No joke. We lose, we
power all the time.
We lose power for 24 hours. Like you have your backup water, then you're using that fireplace because you need to stay warm. you're not just so nice, anymore. Not just ambience. No, it's like, did we bring in enough wood? Right. Was the tarp over the wood, so.
California has the earthquakes. Yeah. There's always something. Yeah. Got a lot. At least with ours, you get to plan in advance and we know it's coming. So
right. You do get a little more heads up. That's
just true, a tad. Usually. Yeah. Going on with favorites, what's your favorite snack?
Healthy snack would be salted almonds relatively healthy, I guess. And then Twizzlers, not red vines. Don't give me any red vines.
No red vines. Got it.
No.
Twizzlers. No. Yes. Going to his, get into his heart, like a man's heart. As long as it's not the vines, you're good.
Right.
Perfect. You're like looking like, okay, when he goes to one of these conventions and stuff.
Some people are really into red vines. It's like a whole thing. I hear it's like a West Coast thing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand that. I don't like them.
I don't do Twizzlers at all. So
okay.
Yeah. No. It's a texture thing.
Yeah. I gotcha. Fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. For sure. You were talking about how you cannot listen to audiobooks in the car because, you need to learn how to, focus the driving thing, but you will listen to music. So what is, what's the song that when it comes on, whether you're in the car, in the supermarket, in your walks or whatever, that when it comes on, you're just like, you have to sing along with it?
Oh, man. I really loved Bryan Adams when I was in high school. It's kind of embarrassing, but if like any Bryan Adams comes on, I'll be like, it cuts like a knife, that kind of thing. He so takes it so seriously.
Yeah.
He's a good channel for romance, actually, like the romance genre. It's like Bryan Adams, he gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any Journey or like Toto, like the power, the really like full on
power.
I'll get classic rock.
Yeah. Funny the definition of classic, because nowadays, thanks again to TikTok, we're learning that songs that were cool when I was a teenager.
Yeah, forget it.
Are now considered the golden oldie station. I'm going, what the fuck?
This is an oldies song, right? Yeah. Oldies,
like when you hear one of those really cool ones and you're going, it's a supermarket. Right. I was going clubbing to this song. So yeah, definitely. It still gets belted out no matter what aisle you're in public. So yeah. Yeah, fun. So Bryan Adams.
Yeah. That's it. I'm a little embarrassed by that one, but I figured I'd tell you. It's
true. I told you they tell me what they had the bodies.
Yeah.
So not only is June audiobook month, but it's also the kickoff of the summer. At least in most places. Yeah. What's your favorite summer thing to do?
Well, I'll have to play on words here, but first I have to plug Summer Roberts, because Summer Roberts is a rock star and I've narrated like 50 books with her, and she's the best. So there's that Summer. I have to mention her.
No, I love Summer. She's awesome. We've talked to her before. Yeah.
But as far as the season,
yes, the season.
Yes, no, of course. Well, it's finally like what I love about summer is finally in the Northeast, it's warm enough to like go to the ocean. Like the ocean is so cold in the Northeast, but you get these few months in the summer and I love the ocean. So LA, I think I mentioned I lived in Maine for a while. So, taking some travels there, around, north of Boston, that kind of area too. There's awesome beaches and parks there, Acadia, up in Maine. So that's something I love about the summer is being able to actually get to, and maybe if it's warm enough, jump in. But it's pretty cool. Ain't no Florida water up here.
Yeah.
No way. Yeah. No. But
we're like January, December, November. Like, let's go to the beach. While the water is cold, you're like, come on, son, warm this section up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're going, wait, was that a fin? Fuck.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Seriously, you gotta. Yeah. Watch out.
Yeah. Because that's especially with us, it's because the water's still warm. We get those kind of visitors, or jellyfishes and stuff like that. We're like, was that a tentacle?
Yikes!
Please don't pee on me. Thank you, Baywatch.
Right.
Yeah, there's always pros and cons to everything.
Of course.
Yes. But I am curious about being up north and figuring out what that whole what real cold water at the beach is. That's why I'd be
Yeah,
like,
it's
just
like,
like
oh,
the
it's like you
cans.
put your toes, just get your toes in. It's
Yeah.
like it's just, and if it's a really hot day, you kind of with some friends, you like work up some gusto and you charge in and like you're in for it. Just it's the most, super invigorating cold. Maybe do a little body surfing and then you're out again. And then you sit on the beach, for another hour till you finally can feel your feet again. And then you go back in. And that's just part of yeah.
Yeah.
The North Atlantic
Yeah.
swimming
Rituals. Yeah.
time, but it's also it's the beauty of the coast. I mean, the Acadia, and there's nothing like the coast of Maine, nothing like it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I can imagine you guys just running and just jumping in as I'm the girl that kind of waddles in a little bit and
No,
figures
you cannot
out
do that.
and like,
Forget it. If you go in slow, you're done for it.
yeah.
Never going.
Yeah. We can do that here though. We're like, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
We're up to the leg, where the meets the thigh. We're like, okay, now we're gonna dive deep and we're gonna just submerge ourselves. We're like, it's not so bad.
Well, then you actually get, if you force yourself to stay in long enough, right? Then you sort of are like, oh, it's not so bad. And you just realize you're slowly getting hypothermia. It's like, oh, I don't really feel anything. It's lovely.
No.
Time
to come out.
No joke. Time to come out.
Yeah. Yes, the pros and cons of everything, as I said. You work with words all day long. What is your favorite word? Not favorite curse word, favorite word.
Favorite word.
Part. Yeah.
Geez. It's like they come up sometimes, there's a favorite words that are evocative of what they just have a sound that sort of makes you think, not only because it's like a great thing in life or in the world, but because it sounds a little bit, right? Is that poetic? Is that the right word? Which is a good word too, but that's not my favorite. Probably serendipity.
That's a good one.
It's fun to say, but it also has it has a little bit of what is, I don't know. There's a ring about it that's like, that word has a little bit of some magic in it. There's like something that's a little kind of, yeah. And it's just a cool thing. It's like, it when it happens. You're like, serendipity. That sounds, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, that's real. And so it's just a fun word. It's kind of how it feels around the mouth, Seren.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I like that, serendipity. So what's your favorite curse word?
Can we swear on this show?
Absolutely. I've done it.
I mean,
I heard paying attention.
You dropped you dropped an F-bomb earlier. So I mean, fuck is the best. It is the best. It is the A-list. It is it can be used in every context of everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a graph? Do you have a graph of people's favorites? Is that one winning out?
I think that that word tends to be everybody's favorite, and I think it's it's very malleable, and you can use it as a noun, as an adjective, good thing, bad thing, describing all sorts of emotions in between, and hey, can even be known as a noun, little fucker. So it's very versatile. So I think it tends to be, and then the other words tend to be more geographical, depending on where you're from, if there's like a little nuance and things like that, like those from British tend to throw cunt and on the style, or bloody hell and things like that. And so it's real fun. But then also when I get the bilinguals, those are even the better ones. They bust into different languages too.
Oh, cool. Yeah, of course. I mean, I know there's some languages are great to swear in.
Oh yeah.
They're just amazing. Teach me some of those swear words. It just sounds like fun.
Yeah. Or when you kind of grab them together and you start with one and then entire and that's almost like a run-on sentence with just words.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that in English too, but if there's something about it when you do it in a different language, it kind of works that way.
Definitely.
So we'll go with fuck. Got it.
Yeah. There you go. That's it.
Tyler, before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on or that you can share? That's coming up next for you.
I think I actually mentioned a couple. I'm very fortunate happy to say I've been pretty busy lately. So I have a couple of good, big ones coming out. I mentioned KF Breen's her Deliciously Dark Fairy Tales series. We just finished recording A Queen of Ruin, and that's a dual cast with Tilly Hooper. She's amazing. She's worked on a bunch of her books. And then the next one up in the Hades series, that's Scarlett St. Clair. That's called a Game of Retribution. Both of those, I think, are going to be like end of May coming out. And then I am starting tomorrow. I'm starting a new series by Allison Ames, Billionaire Blackmail. So you mentioned the billionaire. You're like, does she know what I'm working on? That's what I'm. That's one of the genres. I'm in the middle of that right now. So that's what I got coming up.
Yeah, good for us.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, we always love it. I mean, I know that some listeners will bust out with being like listener motivated, and we're like, well, I need to have a good, like, for me, the story has to be good. It doesn't matter who narrates it. That's an added bonus, you know. But we love it when we know that, you know, our favorite narrators have been cast for something. We're like, it doesn't matter what it is. Yellow Pages, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got some good stuff coming out. Can't wait to listen.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, me too. I hope hope people like it.
Yeah. Oh, you do have your fan group, so you're good there, you know. Like I said, your name came up a lot. Yeah.
Shucks.
Thank you, Tyler, for being part of this year's Audiobook Lovin Series. Really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much. It's really terrific you doing this. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. Likewise. And everyone, thank you for hanging out with us today. And we hope you've enjoyed the interview as well as the series. Make sure to follow. Do you have social media, Tyler?
Yeah. At Tyler Dunne. On
Twitter. On Twitter. That's right. Because we were like, I was looking, I think that's the only one that you do have is Twitter. Yeah. So make sure you're following him over on Twitter. And that way you can rave about, you know, his performance and stuff like that. And if you have a historical romance author friend,
hook me up.
Yeah, hook him up. You'll find all his links over on the main page, the Audiobook Lovin Series for this year over at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. Until next time, happy listenings.
Thank you for joining us in the Audiobook Lovin Series, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. We hope you have enjoyed this episode, as well as the series. We've included audio samples of our guests' work within the post for you to check out. Please make sure to visit the main page, link within the post, to learn more about the series, the authors, and the narrators. Please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to the series if you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you've enjoyed this program.